All right, what's up, my brothers? We got a requested topic today, and I printed up the guy's email so I could deal with this on the highway. It's a bit of a rant when it comes to where men are in today's world, and I think that's okay. So I'm going to read this first, and then I'm going to provide my commentary and feedback on it. He's a little bit pissed off, so just roll with the flow of it. He says, I'm a big fan of the work. The letter is addressed to all concerned individuals. I'm a registered voter and taxpayer. I'm writing this letter in hopes to bring new laws and protecting married men in America from unappreciative, disrespectful, and abusive spouses. You can see where this is going. For far too long, there's been politician after politician pandering for the women voters, promising and getting to pass laws to strengthen women's rights. This could have been a good thing. However, like most things in situations when something leans too far to one side, the other gets taken advantage of, fall by the wayside, be made a joke, and become the exception to societal punching bag and the butt of everything. For public ridicule, and unfortunately, this practice has spilled over into our homes. Now, I'm just going to stop for a second here. Men are no longer the head of the household, okay? The state is, meaning the government. So you need to understand that if you live in a Western modernized country, in most Western modernized countries. I'll talk a little bit more when I provide my feedback. So he's pissed off that this is where we're at today. Husbands get mistreated, they're ridiculed. Children, where does he go on? Affecting the way in which children receives use from husbands. Mass media portrays us as an absolute joke. Absolutely no justice in the courts of America. He's speaking about family law too. So I'm asking for equal protection rights under the law for husbands. By the way, I don't have a magic wand that I can wave to solve this for you. I'm just going to provide my feedback in how I think you should deal with this on a go-forward basis. Because as it stands today, the wives have been using and abusing our children as a lottery ticket to the current system. The wives, have babies or buy us husbands and then cause disagreements with us, hold back sex from us, and then threaten to put us on child support, even though we're still married. The courts don't care. They put on child support anyway, not to mention the wives, have babies that are not always from the husbands, and it's proven that the baby is someone else's. The system doesn't care. They punish them anyway, and wives get the payment from the fathers. And get off unscathed as well. Once the child support order is executed, our credit scores dip below 500, no matter what your score was prior to the child support infraction. Our freedom is also affected because child support process is attached as a probation department. And if you take a look at this practice, the last I understand, as far as society knows, the only people involved with the probation department are criminals, people who broke the law, and or situations adjudicated by a judge. So tell me, how does a husband who doesn't break the law, work 6 to 7 days a week, working long hours at a time, take care and provide for one family, end up on probation? Tell me what country does this and happen to justice. Respectfully submitted. All right, that's the end of his rant. I'm going to provide you with some feedback right now on what I think men should be doing on a go-forward basis, given that these are pretty much facts. There's not a lot of lies detected in that email. There might be some things that don't apply to where you live, your state or province. Maybe because of the way you've structured your life, you've created an extra layer of, security, which cushions you from some of these things. But generally speaking, overall, and again, this was in the first chapter of my book, where I talk about the female first primary social order in the world that we live in today. I also talk a lot about many of his grievances there on the chapter on why smart men don't marry. So, long and short of it is, guys, the world is hostile. The world is hostile towards men. The world doesn't care about men. The world protects women, and men are disposable. And men are disposable at the expense of women. So you need to get that through your head before you start, pounding on about stuff like this. This is a typical narrative that you'll hear a lot about from the men's rights movements, the MRA. They're called men's rights activists. I'm not an MRA. I personally don't think it's a very good use of a man's time, in the long term anyway. And there's better ways to handle the hostile state of the sexual marketplace today. MRAs can do what they want. I've watched them over the years. I haven't seen that much forward progress. If I'm being honest, back when I was getting divorced about 10 years ago or so now, I used to frequent discussion forums The one in Canada, the most popular one in Canada, I don't know if it still is today, was called ottawadivorce.com. And you'd see a lot of grievances like this raised by men. Men on the other side saying, look, I've been through it, there's not much you can do, here's how you can minimize the risk, and here's how you can deal with the risk factors that you're exposed to as a guy. And there was also a lot of entitled, bratty women in there that were the other side of the equation. I started to ask around. I'd ask my family lawyer. I did some Googling. I reached out to some trade organizations that purportedly, cared about fathers enough to try to do something to, fix the laws to at least make something simple occur, like a default shared custody order. And it was all a load of crap, is what I found. They don't care about men. There's no policymakers, no bureaucrats, no politicians anywhere that I found, even in today's world, that are doing anything to make changes in family law or law in general so that it's not hostile towards men or fathers. If you're not familiar with some of the stats, just going off the top of my head, boys that are raised in single mother households commit far more crimes. I think 85% of the incarcerated are in jail as a result of single parent households, mostly single mothers, obviously. Teenage pregnancies, teenage runaways, gang activity, poor grades, suicide attempts, blah, blah, blah. You go all the way down the list. And quite clearly, women aren't doing the greatest jobs at raising children, specifically boys. Fathers get the short end of the stick because women still get 80 to 90% of the custody orders, which basically means mom's raising the kids. Dad gets the screw over daddy deal where he sees the kids every other weekend or maybe a Wednesday night for dinner, and he watches all of his wealth transfer from himself to his ex-wife, which purportedly are supposed to be for the children. But as I talked about in my book, in the marriage chapter, Why Smart Men Don't Marry, it mostly goes to the mom. So how do you deal with these realities? Now that you've heard about these realities, if they're new to you, there's a lot more to unpack. I know guys that have read my book will fully understand most of it, but there's a lot more to unpack beyond that. But what are your options now? What are you going to do? Okay, you can sponsor a video and send me your email and have me respond to it, but is that going to move the bar? Are we seeing men protesting and getting any kind of results whatsoever? I've seen it sometimes where men's rights activists will get together. Sometimes they'll do a documentary or a special or something like that, which more or less gets mocked, if we're being honest. Because when men do it, nobody listens. Nobody wants to hear the plight of men. Nobody wants to hear about, all the crap that fathers go through trying to have access to raise and parent their children. They just don't care. In fact, for the most part, they laugh at them and they mock them. So if you want the bar to move on something like this, the way it needs to happen, in my view, is women need to start protesting. Women need to start getting together and marching on Capitol Hill with all the ladies, put on or take off their pink pussy hats or put them on, I don't care, and get together and say, you know what, my boyfriend won't marry me. I'd like to have children, and the guy that I wanted to have kids with wouldn't do it because the laws are too hostile. And blah, 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 blah. They can make all their signs and march around and burn shit in their, oil barrels and all that sort of stuff. That's what really needs to happen. That's where the real change is going to come from. It's not going to come from guys on discussion forums. It's not going to come from videos on YouTube. Because all you're going to do is you're going to watch them and you're going to be like, yeah, you're going to nod your head, that's bullshit, and then nothing happens. Okay, well, what do you do now that you know the facts? Well, my view is you now respond accordingly. You never live in a way that could potentially expose you to risk, where the state would look at your relationship as a marriage, i.e. common law, because at some point in just about all developed places in the world, your living together with a woman is going to be viewed as a common law type of relationship / marriage. And then guys go, well, what about kids? I want to have kids, Rich. What am I supposed to do? There's a few things you can do. You're not going to like them, but there's a few things that you can do. You can move to a place where shared custody is the default arrangement if you have to untie the knot. You can move to a place where there's no division of assets, or at the very least, if you have a prenuptial agreement, it's respected by the court system. That's what you can do. There are some places in Western countries and in some Eastern countries, which, you might have the option to consider as well, which still do respect masculinity, men and fathers, where the letter of the law is a little more balanced and it's not hostile towards men, where you won't get dragged off away from your house from a false domestic violence allegation and thrown in the slammer overnight and lose access to seeing your kids because she wants to untie the knot. Women are, as he's talking about here, able to act in a fairly bad way with impunity. There aren't a lot of consequences suffered by women when they behave badly. And as I again point out in my book in the chapter on why smart men don't marry, the laws are actually encouraging women to behave in a fairly hostile way to the father of their children while they untie the knot. They don't value, for the most part, men. They don't value the father of their children, and you can't expect that ever to change. This slow progression of the demonization of males and masculinity, and they make up shit like, they call it toxic masculinity and all kinds of stuff like that. But the truth of the matter is, there's no such thing as toxic masculinity. There's a lack of masculinity, which is why boys and men are in this position today. You can go and read some of Dr. Warren Farrell's work if you want to get a little more insight into all of these realities. But long story short of it, that's the reality of the world that we live in today, guys. And that's what you have to understand. If there's any cold hard truths that red pill awareness should bring to you guys today, it should be these facts. And you should then, once you understand the facts, it's like the rules of a game. When you first played chess, in school, I was part of the chess club in elementary school, and you'd sit there and you learn the rules, and that piece can move here and this piece can move there, and that can jump over this, and if you get to the end, then it turns into that sort of thing. Oh, look, you can castle the king and do all these other things too. Once you understand all these moves, all these rules, you then play the game. It's the same thing with life, guys. So expressing grievances and emailing a guy on YouTube to talk about this is fine, and I don't mind shedding light on this, and I don't mind offering my opinion, but don't go to a place where you're just like, this sucks, I hate everybody, I hate everything, and that's not fair. That's not fair. Yeah. How winners win games and how they win at life is by, again, understanding the rules, understanding what they're up against, and playing it. You get dealt a shitty hand at a card game, you play it. Life deals you some lemons, make some lemon meringue pie. That happens to be my favorite. There's a lot of things that you can do, but sulking and whining and complaining is not a good use of your time. Again, we've seen these MRA guys with their signs and protests, and again, I'm not opposed to it, and I'm fully supportive of what they're trying to do. The problem is it doesn't really do anything. I haven't seen it do anything anyway. If somebody has evidence of it doing something, please feel free to reach out to me. Let's have a conversation. I can put you on my Before the Trainwreck podcast or Playing to Win, and let's hash it out and see if there's a way that guys can learn something from it. But from my experience personally, from the hundreds of men that I've talked to that are going through the divorce machine or are dealing with situations like this, and from the divorce lawyers that I've talked to, your best defense is awareness of the game and playing the game as the rules are set out and avoiding certain pitfalls. It's like when you read stuff like this, it's almost like somebody's handed you a map and they've said, here's all the landmines, okay? All you gotta do is walk around them now. It's like you're walking down the street and you see a piece of dog shit on the floor, and you don't walk around it. Instead, you step in it and then you complain about why you have dog shit on your feet. That's essentially what too many guys end up doing, is they just end up complaining about what they've walked into when all they had to do was walk around it. If you want to avoid this nightmare, don't get married to a woman in a place, or have kids with a woman, or live in a way that the state views as a marriage, in a place where you can be treated like a piece of crap, where you're treated poorly. My advice to you is move to a place where you're treated better, where men, masculinity, and fathers are respected and valued and not treated like disposable commodities in most Western places, which, by the way, I live in Canada, is throughout most of the United States and almost all of Canada. I think Quebec has slightly better laws than the rest of Canada, but all the provinces and territories are pretty much the same. So if you don't want to get wrecked, don't get married, don't have kids. Or if you are adamant about having kids, go live somewhere where fathers are not treated terribly, where there's more balanced laws than family law, and you can go do some research on that. That's my advice on that one. Comment below. It's an open discussion. The comments are open to anybody to chime in. And if you feel like there's something I should take a look at, or you have some new information or some new evidence that we could chop up on my channel, I'll put you on a podcast. Send me an email, and let me know what your bright idea is. I'm always open to other guys saying, "Hey, look, I've got a better solution to this problem." I haven't seen one yet. My solution, I've talked about in my book, I've talked about in my channel. Understand the rules, play them as they are, and that's it. You don't really have that much in the way of other potential solutions there. There's some things you can do to minimize the risk of getting divorce raped beyond moving to better places, and I'll be talking about that in the future. I got to put all the information together that I've collected. It's still not, a foolproof insurance policy, but there are things that you can do. So comment below, smash the like button. Want to thank the viewer that sponsored this video for giving me opportunity to talk about this and provide some feedback. But hey, man, it's a shitty hand that you've been dealt as guys. The burden of performance is on our shoulders, and we have to do the work, and we are the disposable ones. Now that you know that, accept it and play the game as you know the rules to be. We'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.